fucking idiot.
I know. I forgot the introduction.
Idiot.
So, well,
and you call yourself my champion. Atrocious.
In a world full of noise, two voices rise above the chaos. Ron and Brian. They speak truth. They stir thought. They accidentally help. News, nonsense, and necessary self-care. Join the cult of Ron and Brian, because the work is so important.
And here we are, Brian. It is episode 390, one that I know you've been waiting for. I've been waiting for. The world has been waiting for. Brian, how are you this evening?
I'd be doing a lot better if you had dressed up this week, Ron.
We'll get into that once we get into our main segment here. Anything additional, or do you want me to just start off with the featured event?
There's only two things going on this week. One is the presidential debate. The other one is me kicking your ass. And I'm all out of kicking ass right now.
All right, we'll just get started, I guess.
In a world where opinions refuse to die, from the Cult of Ron and Brian podcast, two voices, two philosophies, the 2026 Podcast Championship debate. Ron versus Brian. One more time.
All right, and we welcome back yet again this February Moderator Marty, who will be handling our annual championship debate. That's right.
Glad to be here.
Marty,
right.
How are you this fine evening?
I am good. How are you?
Fantastic. Lovely as always to see you.
Brian?
Yes?
How are we doing tonight?
I am feeling energized. I am feeling presidential. I'm feeling like I am dressed for the occasion. I am dressed for the manner of the importance of what we are going to be doing in the next hour.
All right. Well, with that, let's get right into it, okay? All right.
I thought we already were in it.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, they and them, binary and non-binary, and however else you wish to be recognized. We here at the Ron and Brian podcast don't discriminate. You want to be identified as an armadillo? That's fine, just as long as you're tuned into the third annual championship debate. Tonight, we have our two-time reigning champion and current 51% owner, Mr. Ron's Balls Podcast, defending his title against our current 49% owner, Mr. Brian Podcast. Along with bragging rights and public shaming for the next year, the winner will also receive the one, the only, the shiny, the ridiculous title belt. This past year has brought on many changes for the podcast. In 2025, we saw a rebrand, a new and improved title belt, an increase in AI promotion. We celebrated a wedding, spoke with our 4-time Death Pool contest winner, and of course, endured never-ending conversations about bowel movements and GI concerns. And you all remember Chicken Stan and the fabulous Gemma residing in London from last year's debate opening. Sadly, they couldn't be here tonight as they are touring their respective countries, trying to drum up business for the podcast. They send their best and are both making it their number one priority to do the work, because the work is so important. Now, while we haven't seen any new segments from the fellas this past year, we here at the debate team have added some new bits for tonight's layout. We will be starting off with our opening statements, followed by a look at Beef of the Week. We then move on to Let's See What You Got, Cringiest Corner, Game On, and lastly, Would You Rather. We'll close with our ending statements, and then the guys will retreat back to their respective corners and reflect on their performances. All right, we'll now start with our opening statements. You will have 2 minutes each with a 1-minute rebuttal. Godspeed. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right. Ready.
All right. Brian, as current 49% owner, you will go first. You have 2 minutes.
First off, I would like to thank you, Marty the moderator, for volunteering for this unenviable job to keep Ron from his worst instincts, to take over this debate and make it a 1-hour commercial for his latest hair treatment for male pattern baldness. I would also like to thank the Moms of Liberty the Chinese Communist Party, our sponsors Blue Chew and MeUndies, as well as the American people and all global citizens watching today. Unlike my opponent, my efforts to reclaim the championship of this podcast is not a drive for power, but purely a non-violent fight for this podcast's independence. In the past 2 years, my opponent has fought daily to effect a Philadelphia-style coup and to set up a dictatorship of this podcast. Over the past 2 years, my opponent has grabbed power he should not have, made decisions that only benefited for himself, and stolen from all of us. But under the bylaws of this cherished podcast, there can be no room for dictatorship. The dark days that have fallen upon us need to be brought to a stop. A non-violent champion of the people, as I was when the title belt was last held in New Jersey, will covet nothing for himself. He fights only for the freedom of his podcast. The power, when it comes, will belong to the people of the podcast, and it will be for them to decide how that power is to be used. I have faith, therefore, that if, in spite of life's shortcomings, my opponent's downfall does happen, it will be because God, our Creator, rejected my opponent's call to make himself king and granted the people a champion we can all be proud of.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Ron, response to that.
It's the typical hyperbole from Brian and lies. He talks about how his title belt was in New Jersey when he last held it, when the truth is he was in New York. The man does not know where he is. The man does not know where he's going. How is this a man to lead the podcast into the future?
Okay. Ron, I understand you also have an opening statement.
Well, actually, I know Brian decided to take his 2 minutes to puff himself up and pat himself on the back. I am using my 2 minutes and my platform to try and effect change in this country. I'm going to read off the 9 names of American individuals killed by ICE so far this year and then ask for a moment of silence. Alex Preddy, Renee Nicole Good, Keith Porter Jr., Luis Gustavo Nunez Caceres, Geraldo Lunas Campos, Victor Manuel Diaz, Paraday La, Luis Beltran Yanez Cruz, and Herbe Sanchez Dominguez. We speak their names. And also, as a final note, if I may add, if this podcast was so important to Brian, why are we doing this debate on a Monday night? Because Brian yet again decided there was something more important for him to do on a Sunday night. I yield the remainder of my time.
Interesting. That was beautiful, and I think brought us all down. Brian, do you have a response to that? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I would like to know when that moment of silence that Ron prefaced was going to take place after he finished reading the names, because I don't know if my hearing is going, but it sounds as if he steamrolled right over that moment of silence to pat himself on the back. Ron in public will speak against ICE. Ron will sit there and act as if he is not part of the elitist, white, Caucasian people of this country. We know he lives in a gated community. He has rubbed in our face his private pool in his backyard. I do not believe his hyperbole.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, well done. We're going to move right along and hit it off with Beef of the Week, our year in review.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
All right, Brian, this first question is for you. In the episode, Ron and Brian Take Broadway, your beef of the week was that you arrived at the liquor store at 7:01, which was clearly after their closing time, yet you complained that they wouldn't open the door just for you and serve the alcohol that you were going to be using for your drink of the week. This lack of planning and blatant arrogance struck the viewers as not only privileged, but they also were questioning your ability to plan ahead and commit to the sacred promise of having your drink of the week thought out and ready to go to share with your fans. They're worried that if you became 51% owner, you might show the same lack of gumption with leadership. What do you have to say to that? You have 2 minutes.
If my issue with supporting local business is misconstrued by moderator, are you having any internet problems? Because it's you just froze, and I just wanted to make sure you have stable internet connection.
Good.
Okay, just making sure, because I know Ron has reported to have some internet issues lately, and I noticed that you just froze, much like Ron has
Brian,
done recently.
stop deflecting from the question and
I
actually
like the
handle
question.
your business.
First off, you do not have the floor. You silence yourself. Ron just froze also. Anywho, my point is this. In my desire to support local business, I expressed displeasure over a local business turning my efforts to support them away, rejecting me. It is because I am so passionate about supporting those who are in my neighborhood, who are in my area. Yes, it is true that I was not born in the great state of New Jersey. Yes, it is true that I did not grow up in the fair Garden State, as we like to say, but this is my adopted home, and I want to support this state in all the glorious ways. Therefore, anybody who is going to have a problem with the fact that I did not handle myself well, I'll accept that. In being rejected by my local liquor store, I will sit there and challenge them to accept how well they support local businesses, and do they share the passion that I do?
All right. Ron, response, you have 1 minute.
Well, again, I think it just shows the repeated lack of accountability that Brian has shown over the years, putting the onus on the business itself, putting the onus on the viewer and the listener themselves, rather than maybe taking a step back and reflecting and saying, maybe I'm the problem here.
Okay. Ron, this next one is for you. In the episode, Dictators Love Ron, your beef of the week was that the D terminal at the Philadelphia airport only has a Dunkin' Donuts and nothing else. Then, in the episode back in the UK, your drink of the week was the Dunkin' Spiced Caramel Iced Hard Coffee, which you enjoyed, stating you were, and I quote, pleasantly surprised. Tell us, with this kind of bashing on major corporations and then turning around with the weak compliments on their products, how can viewers be sure you can be trusted to build on future potential sponsors? 2 minutes.
You know, again, thank you for a well thought out, intelligent question. Your leadership in this moderator role has always been an inspiration to us and the rest of us. So first of all, I wanted to thank you for that. Secondly, I think it's important to note that you can be critical of something while still love something. Like, there are many times that I'm critical of Brian, of his tangents, of his sweating, of his hair, but I still love the man. And so if it makes me wrong to criticize at times while still coddling other times, then that's a wrong I'm just going to have to live with being.
All right. Brian, response, 1 minute.
Once again, Ron has issued what he's probably going to pat himself on the back as having answered your question. Again, Ron freezing. The internet between the two of you is awful. Please, do either of you want to reboot the modem over there? But let me address actually what Ron said. This is a classic case of obfuscation. I don't remember the word. This is a classic case of Ron using word salad to give the impression that he has answered the question, while in all reality, he has dodged responsibility.
I believe his 1 minute is up, moderator. I believe his 1 minute has run out.
No, he's under 10 seconds.
Hey, who is running this debate? How dare you step on my time?
Down to 5 seconds.
Shame on you.
All right.
Shame on you. Yes, I will lower my voice. I'm sorry.
Brian, in video killed the podcast star. Your beef of the week was actually the Patreons themselves, ouch, for not sending their personal addresses to you so that you could send out podcast stickers in bulk to their mailboxes. Now, do you think it's fair to blame the Patreons, who are all tuned in watching tonight, by the way, for not opening up their wide collective boxes for your own cis male gain? 2 minutes.
I don't need 2 minutes on this one. I have apologized. If you are a true fan of the podcast, if you are a true listener viewer, you will know that in the following episode, I got up there and I apologized. I went in front of the people, our Patreon friends, our family, and said, "Listen, I was not in sound mind the previous week. I had been on some heavy painkillers for a recent gallbladder surgery that had been performed the week before, and I apologize for my behavior. I have no memory of that entire episode." And it was a dark time in my past, and I believe I am a better person today for that.
All right, interesting. I don't remember that apology at all. Ron, response, you 1 minute.
Well, I think it's important first to point out at the beginning of his answer how he was told to quiet down, to hush down. He can't even assume a leadership position in his own house, but he's going to assume a leadership position in this podcast. I don't think so. And again, we see that lack of accountability continuing to roll along. It wasn't him, Marty. It was the painkillers. It was the weather. All of this not taking accountability. Very unchamp-like, very 49% ownership-like.
Okay. Next, Ron, this one is for you. Ron, it seemed to be a running theme this past year with your beef of the week that you mentioned the cost of food and drink at public events. I mean, it really just came up a lot. We heard you complain about multiple venues, just to name a few: Citizens Bank Park, The Man, Palace Theater in New York City, Netflix House, Yankee Stadium. It just goes on. Yet, you seem to return to locations that are known to have an increase in cost to purchase items. We have heard some rumblings that viewers are worried that you might be dipping into the deep pockets of the podcast to enjoy these experiences that you clearly have out of your price range. What do you have to say to that? 2 minutes.
So I would say I consistently say that I am a man of the people. You will look at the wardrobes of the two individuals here tonight. Brian is dressed in the same suit that he wore to go see the Melania documentary earlier today. He is doing the proverbial lipstick on a pig, where I, a common man, dressed like everybody else out there. And so that is who I am fighting for when I complain about high food costs. I'm complaining for that young child in the Bronx who might want to get a hot dog and a soda at Yankee Stadium. I'm fighting for that young girl in Philadelphia who may want to get a frozen slushie and a hot pretzel and a hoagie when they're at the Man Center. Those are the people that I'm fighting for. As far as the deep pockets of the podcast being dipped into, I have no comment on that.
All right. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Brian, response, 1 minute.
I would just simply like to point out, in each time during this past year when Ron complained about the price of concessions at concerts, plays, sporting events that he attended, not once did he mention the common people. Not once did he mention people in Harlem or in South Philadelphia, the starving child, the mother of the single mother. Not once did he mention the effect on those people. He may be bringing it up now because it sounds good in front of this forum, but we all remember each and every opportunity he was complaining about himself, because at the end of the day, Ron only cares about himself and what is good for him. He is not a man of the people.
All right, gentlemen, we will now be going into our Let's See What You Got portion of tonight's debate. Again, you'll each have a 2-minute opportunity to respond with a 1-minute rebuttal. Brian, this first question is for you. The year 2025 has brought on a huge increase on both the focus of and use of AI. Despite personal opinions on AI, it is no doubt here to stay. Who could forget AI Brian with the catchphrase, "Ivory, ivory, ivory"? Now, Brian, it's widely understood that Bronze Balls does most of the work with the technical aspect of the podcast. What are your plans with AI going forward to promote? And will 2026 be the year we see you build an AI Ron? 2 minutes.
There is nothing worse than the concept, the idea that there is an AI Ron. The human Ron is bad enough. The plague that he has brought upon this planet is it's a devastation that the earth is struggling to rebuild from. Ultimately, I will have to say this: as a man of the people, I will not be replaced by AI. The people will not be replaced by AI. Are there benefits of AI? Yes. Do I feel that this podcast has become lazy over the past 2 years under the podcast reign of my opponent? Do I believe that he, instead of actually working on new bits or working on an effort to grow the show, simply types in a few commands into ChatGPT and pats himself on the back to sit there and go, "Ooh, I'm doing my job"? No, he has become lazy. He has become lackadaisical. He has stopped putting an effort into it. He's not representing the people. He is wasting so much water to cool off those AI data centers that exist across this planet so he can make cheap photos and doctor images of myself in incriminating positions.
All right. Ron.
Well, I have a few responses. First, one thing I will agree with my opponent on is that AI will not replace Brian. I feel that could probably be done with an old speak and spell. Otherwise, I think it is important that, there be more creation that is non-AI. I am proud to announce that none of my attacks this week are AI generated. I am raw dogging this debate without AI.
All right.
And if Brian wants to talk about environmental impact, how much is the environment being impacted when he is consistently ordering kimchi from the local Whole Foods and having someone driving it over to his location? He's killing the planet in a number of different ways that he doesn't want to even own up to. Again, the lack of accountability is nauseating.
Says the man
I'm sorry,
who slaughtered the frogs in his own property because he needed to have a private
moderator.
Brian, you had your chance. We're gonna run this next one's for you. We're gonna keep going here. Ron, on May 11th of 2025, we saw a rebrand of the show. The cult of Ron and Brian was born, complete with a new logo and soft intro music. We also saw a surge in social media promotions, yet we haven't heard of the impact these changes have had in regards to financial gain. Fans are curious, did these modifications positively affect the podcast overall? And if not, what are your next steps for marketing so that the podcast can finally achieve worldwide recognition?
Well, I think it all depends on what your definition of success is. And I do not look at success merely through a financial lens. I get that Brian does. He lives in an ivory tower. He overlooks a river. He takes a ferry each morning that costs $13.50 one way to get to work. That is who he is. And I feel we have expanded our reach. Have we gained financially? No, because all this money keeps being funneled back into the podcast. All of this money gets funneled back into translators that try and decipher what Brian says each and every week and put it into different languages so this can be sent worldwide. So I think I will continue to work on the 49% dragging me down as we continue to work on improving the podcast this year.
Ooh, tough words there. Brian, response.
The people have spoken, and they have rejected Ron's use of this podcast to promote himself. People who are keen followers of this show will remember all of Ron's attempts to rebrand this show earlier last year as the Cult of Ron. The amount of legal infighting that took place behind the scenes for me to ensure that my name remained in the title of the show cost me millions of dollars, brought to financial ruin because I needed the people to know that this show still, even at 49%, represented them. Ron has spent this time promoting himself, positioning himself as this tyrannical leader in the podcast universe. He has spoken often.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. We've come up on your 1 minute. Keeping in line with looking at endorsement, this next one is for Brian. Brian, You experienced your first colonoscopy this past year. Congratulations. Over the past 325 days, we have heard you talk about your increase in flatulent activity, your inability to handle 2 Blue Moon extras without almost shitting yourself, and your annoyance with the delayed GI appointment almost causing you to leave and give up on your colon, among other bowel-related remarks. I think we can all agree it was time for you to finally have a professional inspect your intestinal tract. Now, regardless of the fact that you left this colonoscopy without taking a shower afterwards, potentially exposing innocent civilians to your rectal juice from the removed lubricated probe, you got the task completed. Well done. However, it seems like there was a missed opportunity here. It's a common fact that you can request pictures of your actual colon from the procedure. We had numerous fans write in and ask why you didn't think to get these pictures and use them for podcast merch. Sounds like a lost chance. Tell us, what do you have to say about this? You have 2 minutes.
Well, I will just say this. The photos of my lower intestine, my colon, they were obtained by me. Marty, if you were a Patreon of this podcast, you would know that those photos were used in the following month's Can You Beat Ron, where we did a 10-question game on intestinal health on the colon, where I inserted photos of my colon into the slides of that show. They were used. Meetings were had with Ron in terms of how to use these photos for merchandise. I had great ideas. We were going to take a flesh-colored koozie with the name of the show that was actual size width of my colon. Ron rejected that. I had this beautiful idea of a large picture of my colon on a t-shirt that said underneath, "You're the hole in one." Ron rejected that also. It is just a recurring theme that took place as a result of my colonoscopy that Ron is jealous. Ron can only handle things when he is the center of attention. It drives him crazy that even I'm talking at this very moment. If Ron could freeze the internet even more on his side of the screen, and then somehow magically it just diffuses down to you, Marty. But if Ron could just simply make the show simply about him, he would have done it already. I am fighting an uphill battle for the people against tyranny, against dictatorship. This is not a battle that can be lost, and certainly it will not be won with merchandise.
All right, Ron, I heard some good ideas there. What do you have to say? You have 1 minute.
So first off, Brian continuously claims to be a man of the people, yet he was the man who insisted that these photos of his colon remain behind a paywall. And as far as his merchandise ideas, what he did not tell you is that his caveat for that is that he wanted half of the proceeds to go to him and half of the proceeds to go to the Proud Boys. And I'm sorry if I couldn't stand behind that. Okay. He is very familiar with handling colons going all the way back to college, though. I will give him that credit.
Yes, this we do know. All right. Ron, next question is for you. This was a big year for the LGBTQRTUSVZ community. We saw some policy shifts, such as the banning of transgender individuals from gender-affirming care in federal programs. We saw more celebrities publicly come out, such as Anna Camp and JoJo Siwa. There is a great concern for the future of the community under the current administration regime, many fearing for their individual rights moving forward, and rightfully so. Ron, there have been a few questions. Will 2026 finally be the year you feel comfortable enough to come out to your fans as a proud part of the furry community? Your followers just want what's best for you and for you to live your best life with your most authentic self. Many are worried that if this doesn't happen soon, you will regret it and will forever live in a fairy-filled lie.
Well, I appreciate your concern. I guess the only answer I can give to that is the only community that I truly belong to is the championship community. And that is why for the last 2 years, I have held this prestigious title. That is why the retired Ron and Brian podcast title hangs behind my head. In the meantime, I love you, Moderator Marty, but this shows the virus that Brian can become by putting these lies out here. I have nothing against the furry community, and were I to be part of it, I would be happy to be welcomed into it. But otherwise, I am a friend and a fan and a supporter of the LGBTQ and all the other letters you put in there.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Those other letters, active members of this world, this community, and you are simply going to call them these other letters. Shameful.
I mean, that's better than what you call them in our group chats.
Ooh.
Bring the receipts, or you're just lying. I would like to rebut Ron if that is acceptable to you.
Yeah, we know that this has been part of your yearly predictions for the past few years, and I think that we are eager to hear your response.
The only community that Ron is a part of are the people who are still using dial-up internet with a 14.4K modem using their, Jesus Christ, the Epstein files. Let's not make references to that right now. The Perlis files. Jesus Christ. The only community that Ron is taking part in are people with terrible internet. Ron refuses to join the 21st century and sign up for a cable modem. He refuses to use Verizon Fios, something that has been offered in his neighborhood. If I remember correctly, he even talked about how he was hoping to steal internet from his next door neighbor, use their Wi-Fi. That is the only community that Ron participates in. People who steal their neighbor's Wi-Fi or simply use a dial-up modem.
All right. Brian, you're up, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. So it wouldn't be any kind of real discussion if we didn't bring up Taylor Swift at least once. Brian, we have again had many of our listeners write to us expressing their disappointment with the absence of fresh segments this past year. It's actually been recommended to start a weekly Taylor Swift segment. This would not only boost the female listener demographic, it may even be just the change needed to get at least one of your lovely wives to finally tune into the show, which neither of them have wanted anything to do with since the beginning. This could once and for all truly prove to the audience that you do in fact celebrate and uplift women, as this topic has been such a point of contention. I mean, you could really get into this. You could play a new Taylor Swift song each week and talk about how it impacts you personally. You could do a deep dive on how she picks the names of her cats. You could speculate on her upcoming one-of-a-kind wedding dress. I mean, the list just goes on. Options are endless. I think this idea has great potential, and we're eager to hear your response.
I have been fighting for a weekly Taylor Swift segment. I have been arguing with Ron for the past 2 years that it is time that we put to bed some of these old, tired bits that he still likes to do, where he promotes things that are happening in the Philadelphia adjacent area, like the innocent slaughter of innocent frogs, so that local residents, despite the EPA warned rain wastewater trail, will devastate the local community and wildlife, insist on continuing to build. Okay, when it was just simply months ago when Disney put out the 6-episode docuseries, The End of an Era. I sat there and said to Ron, how amazing would it be if we live watched each episode and provided live commentary, discuss the songs she sings, discuss the wardrobe changes, the personal moments where we saw her really ascend to be the queen that she is. Ron, his exact phrases, I will not quote here. I know a lady like yourself, you should not hear those ugly words that he used about Taylor Swift. This is just goes back to, once again, if a bit is not going to be about Ron, then he is not interested. All he wants to do is to wear shitty olive green t-shirts to a classy event and act like it's okay. Why? Because he thinks that the rules do not apply to him. Why? Because he thinks he's above it, but he is not. And this coming Super Bowl, when this championship bet comes up, it's time for us all to go to the ballot boxes, place our bets, and let Ron know that he is not a king.
All right, Ron. So your response, and think of your lovely wife before you answer, as we all know she's a big Swiftie. The right words just might have her playing with your redwood tree.
Well, I would just like to say, when one of our wives wanted to go to the Eras movie, who was there in line next to her? When one of our wives wanted to go to the Life of a Showgirl album release in the movie theater, who was there? And who was in the background saying to me, we should not support women that think they are important? And it's that man to this direction, who talks a good game in person, but the reality of it is much, much darker. You do not get a rebuttal. Only Maya get a rebuttal. You get a question, a rebuttal, zip it.
I'm going to allow 10 seconds for a rebuttal. Why not? Brian, you have 10 seconds.
Collusion.
My only issue with Ron going to see that movie was the fact that he specifically requested the 11 a.m. show so that he could sit in a movie theater with 11, 12, and 13-year-old girls. I said to Ron, let's go to a nighttime showing, which is going to be filled with 18 and above adults.
That's your 10. All right, Ron, 2025 was not the best year for our country's beloved immigrants. Administration initiated massive enforcement, including using the National Guard for border security and removing undocumented immigrants. Tell us, how is the podcast planning on protecting its own undocumented immigrants who work behind the scenes along with Matt each and every week? 2 minutes.
Well, I think the most important thing is we keep them away from Brian and we keep them away from his ivory tower. As we have mentioned often, Brian's new move is to pick up day laborers from his local Home Depot, have them come do work at his place, and then call ICE on them before he pays them. It is a tragic abuse of power and authority. We have open arms here in Philadelphia, Jason. We have a large house with many bedrooms. We welcome our fellow immigrants into this house, and we will keep you safe here from the likes of Brian and ICE, because they're really interchangeable. Brian equals ICE.
Ron equals Frozen.
Brian responds to that. And feel free to take up your full 1 minute so that this podcast doesn't end up shorter than it usually is.
I never go the full minute. I mean, I think we all know that. So I don't think we can really talk about that. I'll just drag out my preface to make it seem like I'll do better. I think this is the foreplay of the podcast debate. My comment is this. Ron may sit there and pretend to talk a pretty game. I have never seen a minority in his home. The only immigrants that are allowed inside Casa de Ron are the dark-haired cats that he abducts off the streets and brings them into the house. There is absolutely nobody of African-American heritage that has ever entered Ron's home. There is nobody of Hispanic heritage that has ever entered his home. There is nobody of Asian heritage that has been allowed into his home. The man has a sign above his front door that said only Germans are allowed to walk into this house. And I will tell you this. The full Nazi uniform that Ron has hanging up in the closet right behind him that he will show me before we start this podcast, and then we'll close the door just because he does not want people to see it. That is the true thought process that our champion has. The man does not support immigrants. Why? Look at him. He works in the hotel industry, a well-known American industry that has taken advantage of the backs of immigrants, who have taken advantage of the blood and the sweat of people who come to this country looking for a better way of life, all so that he can pay them illegally less than minimum wage while they clean.
This feels like this has gone on for much longer than a minute.
We went on longer, but I kind of wanted to hear. And Ron, just for giggles, I'm going to give you a 1 minute rebuttal if you would like it.
Well, again, lies, and more lies from Brian. And I think the fact that Brian cannot deny is that not only have minorities not been welcome into his ivory tower, there is a list of friends of the podcast that have never received an invite to the ivory tower, have never been let inside, have never been poolside, have never been at the basketball court. he ignores them consistently. If he ignores the ones closest to him, what do you think he does to those that aren't close to him?
Interesting. All right, we will now be moving on to our next segment, Cringiest Corner. We had our dedicated listeners of the show call, write, text, and tweet. They sifted through hours upon hours of nonsense talk and privileged white male complaints, all with the goal to find the cringiest comments each of you has declared this past year. You'll each have 2 minutes to answer with a 1-minute rebuttal. We'll start with our current 51% owner, Ron. In the episode, Everything is Awful, you spent approximately 37 minutes complaining about the state of your new Blackstone, which needed repair after delivery. You say you bought the kit that it came with. You mentioned wanting to start your own YouTube series showing you cooking on your new beautiful man grill, and you complain about the length of time it will take to receive the replacement. You say the word Blackstone 86 times, and then, this is a direct quote, now I have to wait almost a week, and I wanted to make breakfast on my Blackstone outside on Sunday morning. Instead, I have to cook inside like a common person. Fans were really just appalled to hear this level of braggy entitlement. I mean, the comments were just really hard to get through. What can you say about this? 2 minutes.
Well, I will say this, and maybe this is unprecedented in a debate like this, but I almost need to call the moderator out on this. Earlier in this very debate, you accused me of coddling up to major corporations, but yet here is an example of where I held a corporation to task, because if they're not taking care of me, are they really taking care of the common man? So
you froze. You
right.
keep freezing. You have the world's. You have the world's.
How do you know you're
internet.
not freezing, Brian? How do you know you're not the one freezing?
Because people in the comments are posting about how badly you're freezing.
So anyway, I stand by my statements. Large corporations should provide consumers with what they pay for. People's income and their dollars are so important these days. You can be like Brian, where you can literally, you can smoke your locks off of burning $100 bills in your ivory tower. That's the kind of wealth you're looking at with the man with the tie over there. Me, again, common man fighting the battle for the common person.
Brian, response.
It is outrageous that this man is going to try to say that he is the voice of the common people while he is bragging about his $600 Blackstone grill. The average American cannot afford
$300. I bought that on sale, you bitch.
I have the floor. You shall zip your mouth, you little bitch.
That is correct.
Moderator, please hold our champion accountable.
Ron, I'll need you to stand down. Brian has the floor, Brian.
I hope that time does not get charged against my 1 minute.
No, we're giving another 30 seconds because we need more time.
There is no way that you can sit here and argue about an inconvenience of your $600 Blackstone grill while claiming that you stand for the common people. The average American is struggling to pay for groceries, staples, bread, eggs, more bread, pasta. And we all know that Ron has not suffered like the American people. He installed his own pool, his personal pool in his backyard during this championship reign that he is currently on. The man is sitting there literally throwing that gold belt in our face that he has over his shoulder. He is telling us that he believes himself to be better than us. He is telling us that he believes that he does not know our struggles. He does not speak for the common person. He speaks for tyrants like Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, and Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, we can all agree with that last one. All right, Brian, this one, let's just jump right in here. For your cringiest comment of the year. In the episode, Mary Thickness, you had quite the reaction to a fellow traveler on a plane you were about to board. You go into a physical description of this passenger saying, quote, his head was at a 90-degree angle with, I believe, a trachea tube going in. You go on to say, I watched this thing being wheeled off, its bulging eyes sticking out like God had just stepped down and squeezed the head to the point where the eyes were about to bug out. You then end this rant saying, quote, Finally, they wheel the potato off. Go ahead.
Go ahead with what?
2 minutes.
On what?
Response to that.
It was a potato. I'm not going to stand here like Ron and pretend that I did not make the comment that I made. I'm not going to stand here like Ron and deny the purpose of my comment. I am not going to stand here like Ron and act like somehow I in that moment when I made that comment had the benefits of the greater man out there. I was the day that this incident happened to me. I was going through a personal tragedy. I was going through a personal event that required my ability to leave the United States. Was it because I was on the Epstein files? We don't know. It hasn't been proven yet. However, I needed to get on a plane to London. And because that person was, how do I say this? Provided a, it was a potato, was provided over 20 minutes to disembark a plane. Or debark? Is it debark or disembark? Disembark, we'll go with. Because that person was allowed 20 minutes, I nearly missed my plane, which would have been unacceptable. Therefore, I'm not going to lie like Ron. I'm not going to pretend I didn't mean what I said. I said it, I'll stand behind it, and I'm going to hold the aviation industry accountable.
Ron, you have 2 minutes to respond just because this is a fun one and I said 2 minutes.
I think this is where the mask of the true Brian falls off and we see the man that he really is. A man that is, an international traveler. He leaves the United States anytime he has an opportunity. And because, his boarding was delayed a few minutes because of someone who has suffered so much in life up to that point. And rather than open his heart and feel a modicum of compassion for that individual, he is going to mock that individual. He is going to look down upon that individual. If he's going to look down on an individual like that, who can tell who else he will look down upon? Shame, Brian. Shame.
I think we all felt that one.
I talk more about the subject, but just thinking about Brian's behavior that day makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit.
All right, I'm glad. I think we're all glad we got those two out of the way. Next, we go on to our game on portion, where I will ask each one of you the same football related question. You each have 1 minute to answer. Brian, you'll answer this one first. Question 1. Turning Point USA is hosting its own halftime show because they believe the Super Bowl halftime show featuring Bad Bunny is too gay. Tell us, which artist would be the least gay to perform at Turning Point's halftime show and why? I can't hear anything.
You might want to turn your microphone back on. Again, this is a man you want running the show, a man who turns off his microphone to blow his nose and then can't remember to turn it back on.
Ron, I will not allow you to turn off my microphone in the middle to embarrass me. Moderator, I ask you to hold this man accountable and please disallow him, warn him that he is not to make adjustments to my volume.
10 points off for anyone who adjusts the volume.
Go ahead, Brian.
Now, back to your question. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
The whole question?
No, just summarize again. I forgot. Oh, who would be the least gay person to be on Turning Point?
Least gay performer at the Turning Point's halftime show.
It does not matter. Turning Point USA is irrelevant. It is a backwards movement that is trying to bring America back in time. Just like Ron is trying to bring this podcast back in time to 3 years ago when he was still the champion and had never not been. He longs for the days where he longs for the days where he can be the king. I'm going to say this. Turning Point USA does not scare me. They can do whatever they want. This is America. This is still the land of opportunity where people can make their own decisions. If Turning Point wants to turn their back on the Super Bowl, on the official Super Bowl halftime show, feel free. They will be embarrassed by the lack of turnout. Nobody will give a shit about their halftime show. But most importantly, it is also an opportunity for us to rebuke Ron, for us to say to him, Tyranny is no longer happening on the show. We will not allow dictators, no kings in my podcast.
All right, Ron, response to that.
Again, he can't give you a direct answer to your question. He just tries to aggrandize and cast aspersions at me. So again, I think the people see through this thinly veiled sweaty facade, and they see the man underneath it, and it's an ugly, ugly man underneath it.
Okay. All right, Ron, this one's for you. In a tag team brawl, I'm sorry, Ron, you answer first. In a tag team brawl of celebrity superfans, which duo would win? Seahawks fans Chris Pratt and Will Ferrell, or Patriots fans Ben Affleck and Conan O'Brien? Just for fun.
Oof. I mean, that's a tough one. So we've got on one side, you've got Chris Pratt and Will Ferrell.
Yep.
And then you've got Ben Affleck and
Conan O'Brien.
Conan O'Brien. Conan's scrappy. Even though he went to Harvard, I feel he's a scrappy man. Ben Affleck, big fan. I feel Chris Pratt, too much of a pretty boy. And Will Ferrell, a little frail at this age in his life. I look at him. I think his bone density is very similar to Brian's. I think a lot of his bones would break very easily. So I would put my money on Team Patriots.
Interesting. Okay, Brian, same question. Do you need me to review the candidates?
I'm going to say this. No, I'm going to say that the Patriots and anything having to do with them is just another example of Ron's East Coast belief that they are better than the rest of this country. Seattle is an upstarting city. It is a place of welcoming. It is a town where we all can enjoy 8 months long of fog and rain. It is the type of town where the Zodiac Killer can walk, or was that San Francisco? God damn it. It is Ron, behave while I'm talking.
Anything.
I know you're doing that. You're putting comments up. I will not allow that. I have to say that the Seattle Seahawks, anything having to do with them, they are the future of the NFL. I am the future of this podcast.
All right. Well, interesting, because Brian, question number 3, you're going to go first on this one. Considering all the off-field scandals involving Patriots owner Robert Kraft and the fact that the Seahawks owner Jody Allen is a woman, who is better fit to run a professional NFL organization?
I'm going to say right up front, the Seattle Seahawks owner. She is the future. We've had enough of crusty old white men. I know, despite the fact that Ron colors his hair terribly, the man is older than I am. I am bringing youth to this podcast in the same way that she is bringing youth to the NFL. Ron's belief that it's okay to go to massage parlors for releases multiple times a day, just like Robert Kraft. That is not something that we accept anymore. We do not believe that is behavior that should be allowed. Ron has spent, tens of thousands of dollars of this podcast money on massage parlors in the Philadelphia adjacent area. He says that he's supporting local business, but, he's just trying to get relief. We understand that. It's unacceptable. Ron is the past. Seattle, the future.
Hold on. I just had someone call it. We just wanted to clarify, but Brian, Ron has not, in fact, spent $900 at a strip club. Is that correct? Just wanted to clarify.
Oh, I'm sure Ron has spent more. The only difference is the fact that I am honest enough to talk about my embarrassing moments of life.
Okay. All right. Ron, you have 1 minute.
So just real quick point of order. I want to make sure that every time Brian goes, that's still being deducted from his time, because I don't want his challenges in forming words to be given any special advantage.
No more than your freezing has. So we're going to,
all right.
It looks even.
Apart from that, I think both individuals are great owners. I think, despite Robert Kraft's personal problems, you have to admit he formed quite the dynasty in New England, and they're back in the Super Bowl again. However, the owner of the Seahawks has put together a juggernaut of a team, one that some champions may be betting their belt on very shortly.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, we've survived it this far, and now we will move on You guys will have to look deep into your own beliefs and morals in order to answer some of life's biggest questions with Would You Rather? Each contestant will have 1 minute to answer. Ron, this first one is for you. Would you rather be forced to use single-ply toilet paper only at your many, many hotels and travels you go on, as we have heard you whine about this in the past, and I quote, I'm glad to be home pampering my behind with the highest triple-ply toilet paper money can buy, or would you prefer to spend this next year of 2026 burning your hands using a vertical waffle maker for breakfast every weekend instead of using your coveted Blackstone? 1 minute.
Well, I mean, first off, I don't know how you'd make waffles on a Blackstone, but regardless.
No. You had a vertical waffle maker that was malfunctioning.
I do.
Yeah.
So I feel like listen, I wipe my buttocks much more often than I make waffles. So I feel just because of that, I'd have to go with, burning myself with a waffle maker. I cannot support single ply toilet paper in any way, shape, or form. That is the type of toilet paper that ICE puts in these detention centers for these immigrants and these detained people to use. And as I have mentioned before, Brian equals ICE.
Okay. And no one likes a dry, itchy asshole. All right. Question number 2, Brian.
Especially when you have to co-host a podcast with one.
Brian, would you rather, for the next full year, be recognized and labeled as the Delco Deuce Dropper, who, as we all remember, was recorded squatting and shitting liquid diarrhea onto a car hood in a fit of road rage, or Billy's Karen, who got into an altercation with the dad over a foul ball and caused an uproar, all the while sporting a terrible haircut and sparking memes across the country?
I mean, to me, this is just as clear as night and day. I would like to be the Delco Deuce Dropper. I mean, first off, the ability to defecate at will is something that I have been robbed of by nature, by biology. There are many times where I need to wait days. Some days I need to take a massive amount of whiskey the night before to be able to release my body of the buildup of feces. The ability that this woman had to basically get into a verbal altercation with somebody and decide, you know what, I'm just going to shit on their car. I would dream of having that ability to defecate like that. I would dream of being able to just release my bowels like that. That's obvious.
It was impressive. Ron, would you rather go to a hotel in London during the month of August for 2 days in a room without air conditioning, or be forced to go to work over the holidays sitting in a cubicle next to Brian while he is going through one of his famous flatulence routines? Both options with poor air quality and posing a health risk to yourself.
I think, no disrespect to Brian's colon, I think I would take a 3-day weekend in a non-air conditioned London hotel versus being trapped in a cubicle next to Brian while he's flashlight, because then I would also have to listen to him talk about figuring out legal ways to discriminate against hiring people. And I don't think I would want to go through that.
All right. Brian, last question. This one's for you. Would you rather be forced to explain to your wife in front of her entire family the proper and graphic meaning of the term snowballing, or send an important package via USPS Ground Advantage, assuring it never gets to its destination on time and therefore letting down everyone around you?
I mean, again, this is a no-brainer here. I would rather use the cheapest form of postal delivery out there than have to allow my in-laws to be able to ascertain just the level of depravity that goes on in this brain up here. We all know that the USPS is a government agency that has seen better days. We want it to be better. I would be perfectly fine using their worst service that they offer any day of the week than having to look at my in-laws and explain to them what snowballing is.
Fair enough. All right, fellas, it's come time to end the night with our final statements. Last year, we closed out with you both doing a freestyle wrap-off to the track of BB Drizzy. This year, as we look to expand the brand and bring in new listeners, we're going to do something different. As a special request from some of our loyal listeners across the sea, we're going to have you give your final statements in an Irish accent. That's right, lads. Now, neither of you is going to be a gobshite, and you're going to do as you're asked. So give me your best, boys. And by best, let's make sure it's not your worst. Brian, lad, let's hear it.
I don't even think I can do an Irish accent, but allow me to say in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day, presented of the state of the podcast, I do not despair of this lunge towards tyranny. There are forces in operation which must inevitably work the downfall of Ron's grip on the power of this show. The arm of the Lord is not shortened, and yet the doom of Ron's tyranny is certain. I therefore leave off where I began, with hope, while drawing encouragement from the Declaration of Independence, the United Nations General Security Council, and the official Spotify rules of operation, of mutually owned podcasts. They all speak to the dangerous threat of tyranny, of self-imposed kings, of Philly-adjacent hotel executives who believe that power comes from a championship belt. No, it does not. It comes from the people. And the people have spoken, and they want me to be the next champion of the podcast.
That was something.
Ron's balls. You're on. Let's hear it, lad.
I don't know what an Irish accent is, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best, wee missy, for that little piece of shot over on the other side of the screen from me. I want to acknowledge something important. 2026 will be objectively better than 2025. Not perfect, but better. I don't want to say that I'm responsible for that improvement, but if you look at the timing, the trends, and the general stabilization of reality, it lines up suspiciously well with my continued championship presence. Nationally, stress reactions slowed. Internationally, chaos became more predictable. People complained less passionately. Work meetings felt shorter. Even winter, less annoying but less shocking. 2025 was panic forward. 2026 will be resignation forward. That's growth. You're welcome. And growth can only continue as long as this title belt stays over my shoulder and not the decrepit, aged, weak-boned shoulder of the man to my left.
All right. Well, that was absolutely terrible, and I'm sorry for our Shamrock-loving listeners out there. I'll need to go bugger off now and apologize to my relatives. Everyone, it's time now to pack it in. Pack it in, which was my nickname in college. Good night.
Nice. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll catch you again next week.
Thank you for joining us for the latest episode of The Cult of Ron and Brian. A non-tax deductible contribution can be made by subscribing to our Patreon. Visit cultofronandbrian.com and click on Become a Patron. We'll see you again next week.